Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Quick summary for you today. We had actually a really cool report from one of our Australians. To the RationalInvestor.com. That's good to see. The Down Under report, we call it, from Johnny Simmons.
Good morning, afternoon.
So it's really cool getting Johnny's perspective on the market, and he's done some really cool analysis with put-call ratios. And interesting, his sort of thesis out of this video was actually this market top was actually put in on December 20th. So fascinating research that he's done here. But really interesting commentary he made, which really struck me, was he follows, of course, the Australian stock market very closely. And he was saying something out of the ordinary recently happened in Australia. You might have heard of the news. To the tune that the total bill after they've sort of tallied everything up was something like $100 billion. And he said through his report that the Australian stock market didn't budge an inch through all of that. And then all of a sudden, coronavirus, woo! And the Australian stock market breaks. What? What's going on here? Is there something bigger going on here? So, a little bit suspicious. Fantastic report from John. Excellent commentary. This 1 + 1 = 3. We have different reports coming in from different site members from around the world on a daily basis. And these people learn this information that I teach in these education programs. They take it the next step, and they do beautiful analysis like this, where we can actually mathematically prove that they, them, the 1% actually put the top in the market back in December in a very cliche fashion way through the derivatives market. So, really cool report from John. Thank you, John, if you're watching this later on. I will thank you personally later on. Looking at our little market summary deck that we like to put together for you guys here on this free offering. As we sort of talked about recently, U.S. dollar index seems to have found some sort of footing against the bottom end of its range, worked its way up, actually tagged 50% rules. We tagged 38.2s, had a big battle, Ray Burchett level, at trend lines, broke out. Interesting how we came right back down through that Fed announcement window, kissed the trend line from the other side, and now we're jackknifing back up. I think probably the biggest conclusion I have out of all of this is just this is big hurry up and park this market. And I think I saw Brexit event, Fed announcements, all those kind of fun talks. We had, pivots that potentially were going to come in on things like British pounds. They crapped out yesterday. You can see they're trying to firm up and hold these lows. So the jury's still out as to whether the pound really wants to move higher or not. I think, interestingly enough, pound moving higher, euro moving higher, that kind of idea. That's actually risk on. So let's hope that this catches a bit of a bid. And if anything, if this is a risk on market, I think it should, but we'll see how that goes. Something the Duke and I noticed this morning, which I thought was fascinating, was crude oil has hit actually two separate AB = CD objectives. So there's this really big one, ABCD. And then there's this smaller one that just happened here in the short term, ABCD, creating a very powerful harmonic window here. And notice there's not a hell of a lot of new selling coming in down here. So we're a million miles away from value. This is an absolute perfect scenario for that typical seasonal bottom for crude, middle of February, unleaded gasoline story. Call your commodities broker to hear the pitch. Interesting too how all we've done is worked our way back down into a reload zone, and actually against a very interesting trend line based off of these lows going back a little while. So really interesting battle point here I don't know whether this is the bottom or not. We might have to A, B, C, D our way out here, but definitely a huge battle point. And it's too early for me to call the bottom just yet. But, given seasonality, given AB equals CDs, given the fact we're at the bottom of value, trend lines, reload zones, I kind of like the idea of risk finding some sort of bottom here. And I find this fascinating. This kind of market, we'll talk about in a little bit, but I think this is absolutely perfect unicorn kind of market. And we're heading into, buy when it snows, sell when it goes. You sell at a profit. So we're heading towards the unicorny type market, heading into the summer. And what's the darling of the market right now? Tesla. And what's fascinating is if you put like a tech stock, future, millennial generation, all that kind of talk, right? But if you actually like overlay like a Bitcoin chart and a Tesla chart, the rates of returns, the charts almost look identical. It's kind of shocking. So I believe that we're coming into a massive historical celestial event, Jupiter, Saturn cross, Saturn, Pluto cross, blah, blah, blah. But I also find too, the reaction of humans on the planet Earth right now is ridiculously extreme. Coronavirus. That was, no offense, and I appreciate a lot of people died, but you have to understand, every single day in the United States of America, over 230 people die from the flu. Every day. So, yes, I appreciate 300 people, 400 people around the world dying. That's an ugly number. Nobody likes it. But at the same time, too, this is the middle of winter. This is when the flu is supposed to strike. So it's really just par for the course. But I think in the context of these huge, broader market moves, keep in mind, end of 10-year cycle. We know economic cycles are 10 years in duration. We're now in year 11. And then we're getting this crazy, insane moves in like these stocks that, what's so funny is there are market participants that I highly respect that are getting absolutely destroyed by this thing, Tesla. Is this logical? Is there any logic around Jupiter Saturn cross? 1980, gold market went nuts. So then that was a Jupiter Saturn cross. 2000, NASDAQ went absolutely crazy. Was that irrational? So I do like the idea that this is sort of our unicorn kind of market. Jupiter Saturn cross, demographic cycles, blah, 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 blah. In our sort of talk about risk on, risk off, don't be surprised, people. I think this stock market is going a hell of a lot higher. Go look at that January barometer report that I put out. And how quickly in one day, bang, bang, I can take the market right back. And of course, like I just showed you there a second ago, on something like the NASDAQ, we're at new all-time highs. Woohoo, party! Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. How do you put tops in markets? The only way you put the top in the market is you got to get the public to come in. And what's the way to get the public to come in? Get those stock prices up. Hey, you would be an idiot not to be long Tesla. Why are you not long? You're foolish. What are you? This is exactly like Bitcoin. $17,000, $18,000, $19,000, $20,000. Why are you not long Bitcoin? It's the future. Blah, 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 blah. So, interesting action in the market. How can you tell Brian's a little tuned up here? Now, we have been talking about the perplexing risk-off market, but it looks to me like risk-off just got punched in the nose here today. So, I've been lamenting about my bonds, and I appreciate it. Some of the viewers are like, Brian, man, you're taking it hard on this bond trade. It's just one trade. So I appreciate that. That makes me actually feel a lot better. Thank you. And I should journal. And, I won't get into that, the nuances of that. What I'll just simply say, which I found totally fascinating, and how cliche, reload zones. Gee whiz, the bonds just topped out in another reload zone. Basically did exactly what they're supposed to do. So, I still got quite a bit of time left on my trade, but I did find it interesting now if I go A, B, C, D, gee whiz, now you can see that those A, B, C, Ds will take us down into my ultimate price objective, that 50% rule. Now, again, the interesting thing about this is this still isn't a quote-unquote sell signal for me here yet. This is actually a 3-bar fractal. We have to have the market finish here today, and then it tick through the lows tomorrow, And then we actually get an outright sell signal. So this thing could still play around back and forth, but nonetheless, the bonds are getting absolutely hammered here today on what I would consider is this coronavirus stuff. I don't think it was actually real economics. I think it was a lot of fear mongering. Now, on the other side of the equation, good old gold, holy moly. We've talked lots about how dangerous gold was. Great analogy of wicks and tails like to be eaten. And of course, if we do things like reload zones, what a shock. They basically took the market right up into that reload zone. Whoops, let's try that again. And stopped it on a dime. Boosh, 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 boosh. Interestingly enough, this actually is not a sell signal for me. 3-bar fractal. We have to finish here today and then go through those lows tomorrow for the sell signal to actually fire for me. So who knows? Right now, we might just simply be painting a range in here. And you can see the potential M that could come in. The only problem is if you change this to a line chart, you notice that that M starts to dissolve and it still looks very VE. So I'm not ready to call a top here yet. If anything, what we need to see is another counter trend rally and then a dump, and then we're done. But really good analogy, like I've sort of talked to you guys recently. This gold market is very, very dangerous. And, remember our conversation about 50% levels on the bonds. Well, hate to say it, people, but 50% level on the gold is all the way down at, survey says, 1392. Don't be shocked if you happen to see gold trading down around $1,400 in the not too distant future. So with that said, what's the stock market looking like for us today? I love pharma, and this is a really good example. I bought this stock down at the bottom here, so I'm just laughing now. It's not really a new trade idea, but what I wanted to show you guys was kind of like, can you see the inverted head and shoulders? Now, I'm not quite sure where I want to start this from. That looks a bit high. We'll go something along those lines. But neckline, shoulder, head, shoulder, back to the neckline, breakout. What I also like about this, too, is it's a nice cup and handle formation. So here's your cup, here's your handle, and there's also another cup, handle, and breakout. So I'm loving these pharma names right now. And you tell me, does this thing have any room to run back if it can get a bit of head steam behind it? I think so. So I'm probably going to be looking, to be honest with you, I bought this thing, I think around $7 or $8. I'm going to be looking, in the short term, I might even be posting out, banging out doubles, that kind of thing. But I think I'm going to be looking for, a good $20 a share on this thing going forward. And I think this is a good analogy, too, that, if you are going to play the market, try and have a nice diversified basket. Yes, I got a whole bunch of penny stocks, but at the same time, too, I've got a bunch of these senior names as well. So if the senior market is running, well, I've got this to sort of focus in on while the juniors are sort of cleaning themselves up. The other thing I'll mention here today is, is it realistic to actually trade this Tesla right now? I don't think so. W's, where did they come in? You can clearly see the breakout through here and cute little W's. Look at all the indicators turning up. There was your time to get in on Tesla. So does it even make sense to even think about buying this stock right here? And I'd say the answer is just unequivocal no. In fact, you might even argue there's going to be some sort of blow off top if this isn't it. I will say that there's a lot of very quote-unquote smart market players who are getting their asses kicked by this thing right now. But if you did want to play this market, what's another alternative that you can consider? And I think this whole sector is going to go absolutely orgy apeshit into this Jupiter-Saturn cross this summer. Everything's going to be about climate change, big circle jerk orgy around Democratic National Convention about how we're going to socialize everything. We're just going to focus on the environment, and we're all going to go hug a tree, blah, 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 blah. If you want to try and play that through the market, I think you want to look at things like alternative fuel stocks. And here's a really good example. This is one I've been talking to you guys about for a while. I am long this. I bought this W here and blew out this and now I have technically a risk-free trade. But you can see beautifully they just brought the market right back down to the na levels. Here comes the W's, and gee whiz, here comes a rally. What a surprise. So, and what's really cool about this one is if this $2.40 is expensive for you, I can show you a way to, like the poor man's way to play blank. And this is the trade that I have on, which happens to be a warrant. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. And like I said, free position. I bought in here, sold half on a double. These things expire forever from now, 2023. And this is an even cheaper way to play the alternative fuel market. A double is a double is a double. And my money is as green as your money is the next guy. So it's just a really good analogy that there are a million different ways to skin this cat. Heading on over to crypto proper here. The corn, is interesting. I was a bit worried on Friday. The CME futures boys actually projected a very well-defined gap theory target up here at about 9,500. And then we went and head and shoulders, very well-defined fractal top. And we're just working our way back down to clean up a lot of these excesses on the futures chart. So it's very difficult to get too bullish here. I think I told you guys recently we're watching. Where is it? This one. How could we somehow figure out a way to play this final push higher into these bigger A, B, C, D objectives, trend lines, 50% levels, 10,100 and change. What does the end of this sort of push look like? I kind of think it's going to look something like that. So how can we play this final push higher? And so that I'm watching this these bot levels as a trend continuation trade. And the long and short of it here is I have to have 3 higher lows to work with, so I have some structure to work with on the trade. And right now, you can see that I think yesterday I reported to you, okay, we had 1 low, 2 lows. Okay, maybe we got something, and I had all the levels drawn out. And you see overnight, boom, we just went and broke this low. You also notice we just made a new high. So actually today I adjusted my bot levels, projected them off of the new low, and so now these are the levels that I'm watching for going forward. This is way, way early, and yesterday I said the same thing. It was still way too early for me to think about pulling the trigger. It's still too early for me to think about pulling the trigger. So since we made a new low, I have to think something along the lines like that. So I'm still thinking this needs some more time to clean up. And to be perfectly honest with you, things are looking a bit heavy here for the corn right now. I noticed we had a really cool conversation. I don't know whether it was in the lounge or in the daily brief, but somebody was talking about dominance today on the site. I can't remember where the hell that was. But you can see the altcoins are catching a serious bid here. Dominance actually broke through these lows. I was fully expecting this thing to keep cranking up. But it's not. It lost those lows. I find that fascinating. You can see, and I got my little write-up here to make sure I define this correctly. So total 2 is everything without Bitcoin, and yet it is trying to press higher here. So I'm noticing that some of the alts are actually catching a pretty good bid. And just sort of finish off today, what does that sort of look like? Well, I talked to you guys recently about this WAN chain. You can't say that there aren't people out there in internet land trying to help you see this stuff ahead of the event. We talked about this repeatedly, day after day after day. This son of a bitch, this son of a bitch. Well, there you go. Bang! And you can see this is a very healthy, simple 50% retracement. I'm not asking for new highs. That's a 4-to-1 risk reward. Even now, you might have woken up and said, oh, god damn it, I just missed it. Okay, fine, blow the damn thing out. You still make almost a 3-to-1 risk reward. So, this is the kind of market state that we're in right now. I did put a tweet out, though, so let's be, careful not to chase. You can buy names as they're breaking out. You have very well-defined risk windows, but I'm a little concerned when I look at something like this. This is the bullshit. If you think A, B, C, D, well, we're definitely hit those kind of objectives. If you think, previous highs, somebody's going to step in front, and if this is the top, they're going to short. So be careful there. And of course, where is the W's? You can see the W on this poop index is way down here at 614. So that's 614. We're now at 1632. So just don't chase. You can't go buy this now. If anything, if you are interested in buying, you got to draw reload zones. You have to wait for pullbacks and all that kind of fun talk. So it's a fun market, and I even put a tweet out earlier today saying, I want to be a completely open book. I'm not here to tout or promote anything. I'm just like, damn, when I see W's, I want to buy. So I put this out today just saying, here are some names that I'm accumulating. Everybody should look at this image and go, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of W's, and it looks like down at the bottom end of the range. I could see why that Beamish guy's buying. Right? So that's the kind of state of the market is right now. I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation. I hope I've given you some things to think about. Try and hunt those W's. Play from a position of strength. All the best, and bye for now.